was something that you had talked about the last night of the summer class, when you were talking about your time with Hussein. And you said something like that Hussein, or the teacher, houses the student for 10 or 15 or 20 years, and then in that time there's an intense relationship that is developed, and that at some point the student leaves. And I don't think you said whether it was the case of like it being the natural conclusion or it just being cut off, but that, there's this thought that there's a time that the student is supposed to leave, but that you said in reality that when the student leaves, the student takes part of the teacher with them. And I think the way you were saying it almost seemed as if you were saying that something in the teacher is like taken away or killed when the student leaves or dies. And I just wondered if you could talk about that a little bit more.
This is going to be a repeat of a lot of things I've said. And I think to be able to adequately talk about this, I have to go back and start from the beginning. That's the way it works for me. We have this story of Layla and Majnun, or Romeo and Juliet, or Khosra and Shirin, where Majnun takes this girl home to her parents, or to his parents, and his parents, before they meet her, ask him, some things about you have changed. And he says, yes, I have fallen in love. His parents ask, what do you mean you have fallen in love? I've fallen in love and I want to marry this woman. And they're of course very happy, at the same time frightened, so they say to him, invite her, let us meet her. And he says, okay, with some hesitation, but he says, okay. And so the day comes, she goes in, and the parents are taken aback She's limping. She's cross-eyed. She's immensely unattractive. And his parents don't really know how to approach him with all the things that they see wrong with this young woman. At a certain point, the girl leaves. They look at their son, and they say, "What is wrong with you? You're a handsome fellow, and yet you say you have fallen in love, but you fall in love with someone who's just so unattractive." And so he says, "Agar bar dide majnun nishini beghir az khubi layli nabini." That if you were to look at this woman from my eyes, you wouldn't see anything but beauty. That when you call someone a teacher, there are many people who look at the person and say, there is nothing interesting about the things that he says. There is nothing interesting about the way he looks. And the way he expresses ideas are actually quite ordinary. We've heard this stuff 1,000 times back home. And they may all be true. But you're not looking at a teacher or at someone from an eye or a perspective of someone who has no intimate relationship. You're intensely involved, and that is what makes your gaze upon this person so very different. I can casually say that Hussein was my teacher, but I don't think I would dare say such things for about 20, 25 years. It's actually been a recent phenomenon where I can actually say, it's kind of like coming to a conclusion of a certain path and looking back and realizing how many people had a hand in your growth, in raising you, protecting you. And then you can say, this is my father, and you can be very proud. When I started teaching, at first I would be very embarrassed to say to my students that I worked at the car wash for about 20 years. I literally washed cars. And at a certain point I began to, and I'm not quite sure how it happened, I began to look at my past, and I began to examine the sort of sacrifice that my parents had made, leaving their native country, leaving their relatives, their sisters, brothers, parents, coming here for 2 kids whose future is uncertain. And your father is no longer young, he's about 50, your mom's about, almost 40. And so when you introduce your father, for example, to someone at this stage, I say, this is my father. But I can say it very proudly now, in the sense that I can say he is an immigrant. He came here with nothing, and this is the life that he has made. So, the reason why I think in the recent years I've mentioned his name so often is because for the first time, I think in maybe 3-4 decades, I've come to realize the sort of difficulties he went through, the sort of sacrifices he made to house us, to kind of look at us as friends, and to some extent even bully us in a way that could be categorized as the sort of compassion a teacher bestows upon a teacher and on a student. So while we were working with Hussein, there were many people who opposed him, who didn't like what he said, who didn't like the way he was talking. They found him to be very dogmatic, very bossy. So that's the first thing, that it's like a gated community or a very private island. It's just you and this person. For some strange reason, though, this person may look casual, very ordinary to all the other people. For you, he or she represents something very, very, very different. there is this, and none of this stuff may be, a response to your question, Cassie, but it's really besides the point, I guess. There is this passage or this story in both the Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Luke with slight variation. It's about the farmer, who's scattering seeds, and some seeds land on rocky roads, and or maybe just on a road, and people step on them, and the birds come and just take what's good away, and the seeds never really have a chance to grow. There are some seeds that are fallen on a pathway that has some soil, but it's for the most part very rocky. And because it has a lot of rocks, the seeds don't really have a chance to grow. They do grow, they do sprout, but because it doesn't take root, it eventually dies rather quickly. There are those who fall, I suppose, on relatively good ground, but before they can take root and sprout, there are lots of vultures who kind of just destroy them. Or maybe the way he says it is that they fall in the cradle of thorns, and though they blossom, they sprout, and they give flowers, the thorns are far too powerful. They eventually suffocate, the flower, and it just dies, and all you see are thorns. And I think all teachers are farmers. They have seeds. It's their insight, it's their experiences, it's, I suppose, their perspectives on various things. And because of the nature of their work, they have no choice but to scatter whatever wisdom that lives inside them. Out of the many thousands of seeds that they scatter, many fall on human beings, like, grounds that are really, really hard and tough. And they never have a chance to grow. None of those seeds have the power to penetrate into the earth, to live there for a while, get the moisture, get the food that they need in order for them to grow. And so they eventually die. And if the saying is true that you can't make the grass grow by pulling it, if you see a human being, if you see a ground that's really, really tough, it doesn't matter how often you want to advertise, it doesn't matter how often you want to nourish and protect what you have planted, it's just not going to work. They're not ready to receive, so just let them go. The seeds that fall in a rocky environment that has some soil, and the seeds go inside, and after 2 weeks you see this green thing coming out of the earth. But because they have no roots, they eventually die. I guess in some ways it's this idea of inspiration. People are inspired. But when you look at their interior, it's like the movie we talked about earlier, The Last Samurai, Too Many Minds. They're just scattered everywhere, all their ambitions and desires and all their psychological history. It's rocky. They don't allow this seed to grow, more, and so eventually it'll just die. And I guess in some ways it's such a tragic way of seeing an inspiration just go into oblivion, And then you have some seeds that are thrown in the cradle of thorns, weeds. They grow, but they stand no chance of survival. And the reason I say this is because you have all these new age teachers out there, and you have thousands of people sitting in, the audience. And I think a good student has to be insightful enough to recognize the fact that out of the 1,000 people who sit there are those whose grounds are hard, are tough, for whatever the reasons. It doesn't matter what anybody says to them. They're not going to get it. There are those who are inspired, but that inspiration, it'll take a minute or two before that inspiration goes away. There are those who are ready to receive, but they haven't really dealt with some of the issues that have haunted them for a long, long time, and they get those seeds eventually get destroyed in some shape or form. And I say this because I don't think we can make teachers, we can define them as all powerful. They're all limited. They are as good as their students. If you have a bunch of students who are like a rocky road, they're just there to get inspired, but nothing lasting will take place within them. And that's what you have as a teacher. A teacher who's able to inspire, but no real transformation will ever take place. And of course, the last, I think, ending of the story in this gospel is that there is this good ground, seeds go in there, and they become gigantic trees, and they have fruits, they have shade. They feed people, they allow people to rest after traveling, under a scorching sun. So not all hope is lost. So when I speak about Hussein, in my eyes, he was able to kind of inspire, protect that inspiration for a long, long time. And I think the reason why he was able to protect the inspiration that he created inside me and a few others, first, because I think I was immensely attracted to him and his ideas and his life. Second, because there was no one else who could inspire the way he did. Third, I could say now, but I couldn't say before, that I loved him in some shape or form. At least that's what, his wife said to me a month or so ago. In many ways, his work, in as much as it was profoundly difficult and complicated, because we were from the same country, because we were from the same culture, because we shared the language, because of him, I eventually began to learn music. And I first began to play in his house when he was there. Because of certain social etiquettes, I could just never call him Hussein. It's not like here, where students ask, what can I call you? You say, well, Amir, what do you want to call me? Can I call you professor? No, for what? Can I call you doctor? No, that's even worse. Can I call you Mr. Amir? And it's an interesting phenomenon, because when I have students from different cultures, they do actually call me Mr. And the point I'm trying to make is that when you have these commonalities, it makes the teacher's job much easier, because you don't have to kind of create this foundation. And in many ways, I think I can't speak about Hussein and Mehrdad and Kazem or Ali Husseini, and I can only speak of myself. You know, my parents sent us to India at the age of 11. But this narrative that they sent us to India because they didn't love us, that didn't exist for us. So we didn't have that trauma. Going back to Iran in 1979 and, you know, watching people die and their revolution, that didn't create trauma either. Coming back here and having no money, and being a dishwasher, mopping floors, all those things that we used to do, and all immigrants do this stuff. And that also didn't create trauma inside any of us. So in many ways, we entered Hussein's domain with our interiors being clean. You know, we didn't have any addictions of sorts. And I say all of this because if you're interested to a set of ideas that could possibly inspire you, give you wings like Pegasus, the truth is you need to make sure that there are no rocks. You need to make sure that the soil has depth. You need to make sure that you're not filled with thorns, because inspiration, it doesn't matter how intense it may be, they're all short-lived, you know, and teachers can't do much, you know, because every time you make some progress, something about your interior comes out by your psychological past and drags you all the way back to where you've always been. And then instead of the teacher beginning where he left off, you drag him or her all the way to the past, and then he has to kind of start from the beginning over and over and over again. You know, when I say, for example, at a certain point, a student needs to walk away from a teacher, a student should be very lucky, is very lucky not to walk away from a teacher. You know, and I'll tell you why. You know, you have this human machinery with the 5 senses that act like a GPS. It tells you where to go, what to do, what's attractive, what's unattractive, what you should pursue, what you shouldn't pursue. You know, you see your brother prospering, you envy him, you become angry with him, you become jealous of him. That motivates you, it gives you ambitions of sorts. You know, you have a companion, they leave you or you leave them, whatever the case may be, you know, but you're very, very grounded. Your 5 senses provide meaning for you, whether you like it or not. When you meet someone like Hussein, your 5 senses no longer have any use. You know, you want to go out with people, but for some strange reason you can't find yourself attracted to simply their exterior. And then you want to go to their interior only to realize, well, you don't really have much use for language either. You know. And you realize that the only person who can somehow fuel you, nourish you is Hussein. You know, your 5 senses connect you to the Garden of Eden. There are all sorts of things out there you can enjoy. I mean, look at what we've done to this house. You know, you change, you put, you know, stones out there, then you fix that, then you fix this. Imagine if you didn't care about any of those things. So, what happens is you're in the darkness because someone inspired you, protected the inspiration. And you really embody the truth of Adam and Eve's expulsion, that your life down here is sweat, blood, it's a toil. You realize that everything takes so much work, and you don't enjoy any of the work that's taking place. On the inside, you're bleeding, you're breaking. And your only hope and your only home is your teacher. He's like the middleman, He embodies the perfection, he embodies beauty, he embodies everything. If you don't have that, if you don't see that in your teacher, there isn't, you're not going to go very far. It's too bad for you and too bad for the person you're working with. For about 10-15 years of being around Hussein, his ideas were the only ones that mattered. His house was the only one that was a home. His ideas were the only ones that were the source of inspiration and meaning. His word was law. He was GPS for the three of us. You know how amazing it is, Cassie, that a human being has become your GPS? Especially someone who doesn't exploit you, who doesn't use you and then toss you aside. If you can hold on to that particular realm for the rest of your life, you're extremely lucky. You have something to worship. There's a person you can write poetry for. If you run into difficulties, that's the person you call. If you need approval, that's the person you go to. If you've made some errors, you go before that person with a good amount of shame. He is like God. There is no reason to read the Quran. There is no reason to stand to pray. You go to his house, it's prayer. The moment you walk in, his presence just forces this abstinence of things about you. You don't think about anything. You just are one-minded. You're very focused. You're very attentive. And when you watch that movie series Rambo, whatever happened to this man in Vietnam, it lived inside him for the rest of his life. And I think he made about 5 or 6 movies. And though it may be a movie, but the truth is people who have suffered traumas like him and many others like him, there is a certain brokenness about them that can never be healed. They live with it. And I think when you have someone like Hussein who breaks you in a very traumatic way, without you really knowing, all you know is that you want to go out there and have a good time, but you can't. You want to join in the conversation, but you don't find language meaningful. You don't even find yourself interesting. When he looks at you and says, "Do you think you're going to write a book?" You say, "Write a book? Are you kidding? I have 0 self-worth. Write a book about what?" And when you say, "Yeah, I'm doing philosophy, maybe one day I can go teach," and when he asks, "What are you going to teach?" you say, "I really have no idea. I'm not really worthy of using words at all." Now, when we say that students leave, it's like saying an 18-year-old looking at their parents and saying, "I'm an adult, I want to leave." Okay, leave. Do you have a job? No. Do you have savings? No. Do you have education? No. So you're going to leave and go where? You're guided by fantasies. You're guided by some illusions about yourself. And eventually what's going to happen, you're going to go out there, you think that life is going to take care of you. You realize you work 40, 50 hours a job, a week. You have 5 roommates. And it's just a complete waste. By the time you catch yourself, you're like 40. And you say to yourself, I should have just stayed home with my parents and finished school. Students leave. Lots of people leave because they think they're great, because they think they understand. When a student leaves, if you want to leave your parents' house, leave when you're done with your education. Because then your education will tell you where to go, what to do. Leave with a good amount of money in your savings account so you can pay for your rent. Leave so your parents don't worry about you, that you're an incompetent idiot. When students oftentimes leave, they leave with self-deceit. Just because you've read, a couple of dialogues, just because you have a couple of degrees, it doesn't mean that you're now equipped to teach. You haven't even been a good student. Just because you're able to parrot some words, it doesn't mean anything. And, I think it was a blessing for the 3 of us, especially for me. Because Hussein was not in the classroom, so he didn't give me that illusion of having 50 students looking at you. You didn't feel like all powerful. And you didn't lust, salivate like a dog. Yeah, I want to get my degrees and teach so I could have all these students look at me. I didn't see Hussein being animated, so I didn't mimic and copy and paste to myself all the things I saw in Hussein. He was just in his living room, that was it. When Hussein would talk about or give commentary on, poetry of Hafiz or Rumi, or when he would make commentary on the verses in the Quran, he didn't use notes. He wasn't like a scholar giving you footnotes and bibliography. He really just wung it. He embodied I think it's the yin aspect of the Asian philosophy, which is very creative. It was insightful. He allowed creativity to just ooze out of him. And that meant that Hussein as a teacher was profoundly self-sufficient. He didn't need books to tell you what these verses are saying. He could be creative. It didn't even mean that he was giving us what Hafiz actually meant. Hussein gave us Hussein's version of Hafiz or Rumi or the Quran. For us, someone wrote the Quran, but Hussein made the Quran come to life. First, because of the way we saw him. Second, because we trusted him. Third, because the way we saw him and trusted him inspired us to listen to him. And that inspiration moved all of us for 10, 15 years. So when you say a student's walking away, it means that you, a student, have graduated. Now, like Irina, you can go on the stage, you can sit, and when someone asks you a question, now you can talk with relatively the same, components or qualities that your teacher had. There came a point in the relationship with Hussein, where I began to, because of just academics, I began to read some philosophy books, Hobbes, Hume, Marx. And my intensity for, or my desire for being around Hussein lessened a little. Now it wasn't, I just didn't have just one mind which was geared towards Hussein. Now I had two minds. One was geared toward Hussein and one was geared toward Western philosophers. And then there was David Long, a really, really nice man, very animated, very self-centered, and I think it was that he was just so different from all the other instructors that created this mirage, And so now I had three minds. There was Hussein, there were the philosophers that lived inside the books, and there was this man, David Long. Time passed, and there came Muhammad Haqqi, who had worked and had seen lots of interesting, very, very interesting people. He had invited Jacob Needleman to Iran. He had met Izutsu, he had conversations with Idris Shah. He was a very interesting man. And despite having a doctorate from Oxford, acupuncturist from Maryland, MD from University of Shiraz, all these accomplishments, he lived in a tiny little room in Berkeley like a homeless person. He had zero money. He had broken his relationship with his family because of his love for ideas. But one thing that remained the same for me is that despite my walking away from Hussein slowly, I remained a student. I was either blessed or cursed with the capacity of finding people who would continuously inspire me. And of course, Krishnamurti. And then there came a point that there was no one. And then I went back to Hussein. And I found him once again very, very refreshing. In some ways, I suppose you could say I was the prodigal son, as all good students are. Hussein brings you to life. Now that you're able to kind of move around a little, you read a book here, you read a book there, you see this person here, you see that person there, and after many, many years of going here and there comes a point where you realize, yes, I talked to David and I talked to Muhammad Haqqi and I read some books. In the end, I realized I just need to go back home to the person who kind of created all of this, and that was Hussein. And after all these years, I say to myself, I can be somewhat autonomous. I can be on the stage that Hussein created for me, but I think I have found my own voice that goes well with my own temperament and my own life experiences. I can kind of generate ideas, relatively interesting ideas, that come out of me and no one else. It's not a copy of anybody. It may be, I don't really know. I think whenever you've invested a good amount of time and energy and hope into someone, anyone, or anything, when you see them become mature and when they walk away because it's their life and now they want to go live it, they're no longer the 35 or 36-year-old man who once gave you a house and made it into a home. He is now a 60-year-old man, And as you age, you lose abilities, you lose energy, you lose patience. You can no longer go back and have gatherings and scream and shout and be, innovative. It doesn't work that way anymore. And what you really, really want is for this person to not go away. You want this person to come to your house so you can continue to have gatherings. But the truth is, they no longer need your hand, to hold your hand to walk. They no longer need to just sit on a chair so you can feed them. They can do all that stuff on their own. And there is a part of you that feels this loss, And whenever there is loss, there is always going to be grief. Sure, every parent accepts the fact that their kid is now ready to leave the house and go out there and make their own life. But parents put their life on pause for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Really, you get nothing from raising your kids. Moments of pleasure, sure. Seeing them graduate, that's great. In the end, they're just going to kind of pack up their stuff and go to New York. And you look at your house, and you say, wow, this is a place I used to have gatherings every single week. And now it's just empty, vacant. It just gathers dust. So there is a good part of you that kind of dies the moment good students walk away. And the thing that I think is important is good teachers don't have good students. Good students in the sense that they reach maturity and they can walk away and become a good teacher in their own right. What most teachers have are students with a good amount of thorns that will eventually suffocate all the seeds that are planted. What teachers usually have are students who are filled with rocks and little soil with little depth, that inspiration comes and then inspiration goes. Now, none of this stuff really means that people should not seek and teachers should not teach. I think we are all condemned by certain natural tendencies. You can't overwrite them. If you have emotions inside you that are just bubbling, you have to express them. If Hussein has been sitting in his shop and writing commentary on Surah Baqarah, when we get to his house, it's this boiler system within him that eventually wants to come out and say, okay, talk about your findings, about your insights, about what you've been working out all day, You know, I think the easiest way that one can appreciate all of this is if you're trying to teach anyone anything, you know, if someone has taught you how to make really, really good coffee, and now after many years of experimentation, you've become a really good barista. Once in a while you catch yourself and you say, man, it's because of, you know, Josh was some 5 years ago. I mean, you know, being a mother now, being a parent now, you know, relocating from the Bay Area to Sacramento because you have a support system now, that your daughter can belong to a bigger community. That's a sacrifice you make, and your child will never understand that, as you never understood any of this when your parents were making sacrifices.